Hello and welcome to the MLS UK show. I'm Henry Hewitt, and as always, I'm joined by
Elliot Holman. Less excited for this episode as I was the last one.
Oh, Elliot. I mean, everyone might think that I'm going to gloat. I'm going to make light of the situation. Obviously, Orlando City will not be in MLS Cup, but genuinely, I felt sorry for you, and I felt sorry for all the Orlando fans that I follow on social media, because this was the time. You can have your moment. And it just wasn't meant to be, was it? No,
we'll talk about it a little more, I'm sure, with our guest today on the podcast. But yeah, I was having some pretty strong feelings, I'll be honest. So we'll dig into that in a bit.
Yes, we will. And yeah, in case you haven't read the title of this podcast, then you won't know. But we are being joined today by the lead play-by-play announcer for Apple TV's MLS Season Pass, Jake Zivin. He's going to be on the show. He was on the show before MLS Cup last year as well, so this is becoming a regular thing before he flies out to LA for MLS Cup, which sadly Orlando City won't be doing.
Yeah. He's moving along.
Yeah, well, he's going to be joining us two to preview the MLS Cup. But I think before we bring him on, we need to discuss this. And normally we'll save this to the very end, but we need to discuss it now. Elliot, at the end of the episode, when you say LA Galaxy style, this could be the last time you say it.
I know. So normally at the end of the episode, we ask you to rate the podcast and leave us a comment. And there's one rule and one rule only, and we always say 5 stars only, LA Galaxy style, because they have got 5 stars. They've won MLS Cup 5 times. It could be 6. That gag could be over. Are Spotify going to add an extra star for us? I don't think so. So this is it. This could be the last time it ever gets said in an episode.
I know, and I don't even want to say hopefully not, because I don't want to choose a team. I like them both. But anyway, we'll have to discuss this more at the end of the episode. But for now, let's bring him on. Jake Zivin, who, of course, is the lead play-by-play announcer for Apple TV's MLS Season Pass.
Elliot Holman, Henry Hewitt, MLS UK show.
Joining us now on the MLS UK show, you know who this is. It's Apple TV MLS Season Pass's lead play-by-play announcer, Jake Zivin's on the show. How are you, Jake?
Guys, I'm doing great. It's good to see you again. MLS Cup week. Here we go. It's a tradition now, right?
Yeah, exactly. You were on here last year. You were on with just me. We were talking about going to Columbus, and you said, well, maybe I would have liked to have gone to LA, some warmer climes. Well, you've got your wish this year.
It will be nice down there. The forecast looks great. Like in the high 70s for us Americans in Fahrenheit. I don't have my Fahrenheit Celsius chart available right now to tell you what that is, but beautiful. Beautiful weather, Southern California weather. MLS Cup was great last year in Columbus, man. Lower.com Field was rocking. Dignity Health Sports Park is going to be that way as well. It's back. The Galaxy are back, and it should be a great environment.
We mentioned this last week when Andrew Wiebe joined us, and I've got to put the same question to you. Myself and Henry, we've been doing this podcast for 6, 7, 8 years, and we keep seeing, in the history of MLS, apparently LA Galaxy used to be quite good. We've seen no evidence of that whatsoever until this season. Is this quite normal for you guys?
I assumed that the LA Galaxy would have been the only MLS team that you guys had heard of for like the first 20 years of the league, right? When Beckham joined in 2007. No, yeah, look, they were, right? I mean, Taylor Twellman and I were talking about this after the Western Conference final this past weekend. The last time the Galaxy were in MLS Cup, it was 2014. It was at home. They beat the New England Revolution. And if you told MLS supporters, MLS pundits, people that, paid attention to the league on that day, that it would be exactly 10 years before they'd be back in MLS Cup, people would say no way, right? I mean, anybody would take the bet. Yeah, the Galaxy will make one of the next 10 or 9 MLS Cups. For it to be 10 years to the day is surprising. The Galaxy are MLS's original super team. And designed that way, right? I mean, when the league started in 1996, you had the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars, you had the LA Galaxy, and those were the 2 biggest markets in the United States, biggest markets in at least the US and Canada. And I think it was expected that they would be in this spot quite a bit. Now, the Galaxy, they lived up to that for the first 2 decades, at least, first 20 years of MLS. The Metro Stars and now the Red Bulls have not. But yeah, from a Galaxy perspective, certainly surprising it's been this long because they are the only team to win 5 MLS Cups, and they were the team that really had ambition, right, in the first kind of 2 decades of MLS.
Yeah, well, we were just saying, before you joined us on the podcast, Jake, is that we have a saying at the end of every episode, which is, please leave a rating, 5 stars, LA Galaxy style. We win this weekend, we've got to find a new saying at the end of it. And we've been dining out on that for a fair few years now. So, it is about time, isn't it, that they got to MLS Cup?
Yeah, or talk to the people at Apple Podcasts to add a 6-star that you can rate it, right? It is, right? I mean, I think Galaxy fans, supporters would agree with you. I think MLS, again, pundits and observers would agree. It's been not a great decade for a team that expects much more. And they're back, man. They're back to being, at least this year, in this moment, they're back to being the Galaxy of old.
I want to talk to you about your schedule and what this looks like for you, Jake, because I've been to California a couple of times. Portland, Henry will back me up on this, and everyone who listens to this podcast will back me up. Portland is top of my list. Like I need to get myself to Oregon, to Portland. I'm obsessed with everything from the national parks to going to Providence Park, of course. But what does the next 48 hours look like for you? How is the build up?
First of all, I'm glad to hear you say that. I'm biased as somebody who's been a Portland resident for a decade now, and I'm biased towards Providence Park, right? Because I do think it is a unique MLS experience, and it's a league filled with beautiful, modern, soccer-specific stadiums like BMO Stadium in Los Angeles. Galaxy supporters won't want to hear me talking about it this week. And Lower.com Field in Columbus, and TQL Stadium, and a new stadium coming in New York City and in Miami. And Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson was kind of the first of those, right? Even though it's been open for 20 years. But they all have similar feelings, and Providence Park is unique. It's a 100-year-old building. It's probably similar to what you guys are used to in England and a lot of the grounds in England, right? The ones that have been around for a long time and have real character. So I'm glad to hear you say that. For me, yeah, it's a short trip for me, which is nice because a lot of the time during the year, right, we're headed to South Florida, to Miami/Fort Lauderdale. We've been in Ohio quite a bit the past couple of years with how good Columbus and Cincinnati have been. The trip down to LA, just a 2-hour flight. If I were flying from London, I'd be in Ibiza, but I'm in Los Angeles, which is great. Get on the ground tonight, and then do our prep over the next couple of days, the final couple of days before MLS Cup. There's plenty of responsibilities, from kind of media obligations to meetings with coaches and players. And then boom, Saturday comes, and I can't wait. It's an early MLS Cup for us. It's probably great for you guys in the UK. But a 1 p.m. local time start. The kickoff will be right after 1 p.m. in Los Angeles. So it's just up and at 'em on Saturday, and here we go.
Yeah, don't talk to us about kickoff times because we're put through the ringer here in the UK, especially if we want to watch Portland. But I tell you what, we always strictly talk soccer, and I mean myself and Henry, we met in 2014, the last time Galaxy were in a final, and we met working in radio together. So when you talk about those media obligations, what's on your what are you looking down the list at thinking that's going to be good?
Oh, man, I enjoy all of it, to be honest. I've got local from local news in Los Angeles, where I think I'll be making an appearance or two with the trophy, right, with MLS Cup. That's kind of fun because there's somebody escorting the trophy with white gloved hands throughout, and then we put it in the kind of coffee table in the middle. It's local news, and it's not as much about the tactics and the X's and O's. It's just about getting people excited. To Sirius XM over here, satellite radio, which is going to be a little more serious. I mean, a full channel dedicated just to the sport, to football/soccer. I enjoy all of it, to be honest, and it'll get thrown at me last minute. I'm sure. Hey, can you go do this on Thursday afternoon or Friday afternoon? And yeah, just happy to be involved and always up for it.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, we have been very LA heavy so far, so let's move it over to the East and let's move it over to New York Red Bulls. And at the start of the playoffs, with all the hype around Messi and everyone doing the brackets, I don't think anyone would have had New York Red Bulls making MLS Cup, but they have. What are you expecting from them at the weekend?
More of the same, right? I mean, they've allowed 2 goals in 4 games. They have 3 clean sheets on the road. They're the first team in MLS history to win 3 away matches in a single postseason. The Chicago Fire kind of did it in 1998, but that third one was a neutral site MLS Cup. That doesn't count, right? I mean, the Rebels have gone into 3 away venues and not only have won, but clean sheets in all 3 games. It's incredibly impressive. They have their way, their signature style. It's the Red Bull way. They're going to press high. They're going to be intense. But they have a little bit more quality now with Emil Forsberg, right? And he has made such a difference. Like the with and without stats and records when he starts and when he doesn't. We talked to Sandro Schwartz a couple days ago, and like, is it just that simple? Like, if he plays, you win. If he doesn't, you lose. He kind of joked about it, but he brings a lot. And this group needed an addition like Emil Forsberg in this offseason. When he's been available, when he started, they've been at the least a top 4 team in the East, right? I think you put them in that tier with the Cincinnati, maybe not quite Miami, right, from a regular season standpoint, but you put them in that tier of contenders. And now he's back, and they've shown it in the playoffs. So the 7 seed, I think, is a little bit misleading, right? The record is a little bit misleading because they played about half the season without Emil Forsberg, and they're so much better with him on the field. They've got a big task against the LA Galaxy. The Galaxy have an attack, I want to say, unlike any they face in this postseason, but they beat Columbus, and Columbus are fantastic. Now, maybe Columbus ran out of gas. I find it interesting that both of these teams played about 40 games this year, right? They did not make big leagues cup runs. The Red Bulls were dumped out in the group stage, 2 penalty shootout losses after 2 draws in the group stage. So they didn't have that extra wear and tear in August. Same as the Galaxy. They made it to the round of 32. So they played 3 games in the League's Cup. So the teams like Miami, Columbus that have gone on these deep runs in different competitions, you know, they maybe got worn down. LAFC, same thing. So yeah, look, I think the Red Bulls will bring that energy. They'll be up for it. Can they stop the Galaxy? We'll see. Ricky Puig is a big loss for the Galaxy, right? It's particularly, I think, going against a Red Bull style where Ricky Puig is maybe the best player in the league at dealing with pressure on the ball, at breaking lines, either with a dribble by himself or playing, you know, the perfect ball in those moments. How do the Galaxy feel that burden of not having Ricky Puig against this Red Bull style? To me, I think might decide this game.
I think that's a really good point. And it's kind of the easy grab to say, oh, like Ricky Puig is a good soccer player, right, obviously. But also, I think if he could have played for Orlando, that's where they were missing that final piece that's so much possession in and around the box. I don't even know who you swap out of Orlando for Ricky Puig, but he needs to be in there. You know, it's a strong attack with, you know, they brought on Muriel and Maguire just casually off the bench. Like they're 2 incredible.
Oscar would find a way to get Ricky. I think he wouldn't have too much of a problem with that. Yeah.
But that's what was missing. So to see it missing now from Galaxy, is it giving them more of a chance than maybe we thought?
Sure. Look, the Red Bulls have proven that they have a chance, right? I mean, I don't think it would be a shock. The Galaxy will be favorites in this game. I think they'll be favored by the pundits. I'm sure they'll be favored by the odds makers as well. They're playing at home. That makes a big difference also. And even in a neutral site, I'm sure they would be. But it wouldn't be this, you know, earth-shattering upset, I think, if the Red Bulls win this game, right? They've proven that. They've got a goalkeeper in form. They've got a defense in form. They're good on set pieces. The Galaxy have not been good on set pieces this season, though they've been better defensively in the past few months than they were at the beginning of the year. But yeah, I mean, it certainly, I think, levels the game a little bit more, right? As you take the best player, you take the maestro, the general off of any team heading into a final, it's going to make that team a little bit worse, and it'll, you know, bring the chances up of their opponent a little bit more.
What's the one name, the ultimate name in this matchup between the 2 sides that you think that's going to sound amazing if I can shout that for a goal?
Then that's interesting, right? Because there are some names that this is like getting very technical in broadcasting. Some names just kind of come out better. You know what I mean? So yeah, I honestly have not thought about that. Forsberg, you can kind of punch a little bit more than like a Joveljic. You got to go up at the end, and so that makes it a little more difficult in the big moment. But we'll see. You know, Ricky would have been, I think, that guy for the moment. I mean, he's somebody who loves the moment. Can Marco Royce go, right? Like, that's a big decision. How much can he go? Greg Vanney has, the way I see it, 4 options for 2 spots in Royce, in Mark Delgado, and Gaston Brugman, and Diego Fagundes. Now, if Royce is fully fit, he probably is in there, and so it's 1 for 3. But it's a big decision for Greg Vanney, and he's got a lot of options. So Gabriel Peck, Joseph Paintsel. I mean, there's so many attacking guys there that you're ready, right? You're ready for from a play-by-play standpoint of them scoring a big goal. The Red Bulls, it more feels like it could come from anywhere, right? It could come on a set piece from any of these guys, like a center back like Andres Reyes. Dante Van Zer has all of a sudden been scoring in the playoffs. And they get something out of Lewis Morgan in a big moment. You know, they feel more unpredictable, whereas with the Galaxy, that big moment, you feel like it's going to come from one of those attacking guys, as it has, 85 times this year that they've scored, 3rd most in the history of the league, regular season and playoffs combined, 85 goals this season. So, man, their attack's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's looking at the attack. I think when you go look at the head coach, Greg Vanney, I mean, what an achievement to make his 4th MLS Cup. And yeah. I feel that, you know, that's not said enough, not by you guys, but I think in the wider sort of MLS community, is that this guy was actually, the fans were wanting him out, so a section of LA Galaxy fans at the end of last season. For teams like, say, Miami or Toronto who are looking for new head coaches, does this show that if you go down the experienced MLS route, you are actually better of doing that than, say, just bringing in someone random from abroad?
I look, absolutely. I think that, and I've long been a proponent of this. I mean, you look at the managers who have won MLS Cup, and it's changing a little bit, but you can go back for the history of the league and you look at the managers who've won MLS Cup, and for the most part, they are managers who have been in North American soccer and understand the league and understand the structure of the game. Last year, Wilfried Nancy, I mean, yeah, first year in Columbus, his 3rd year as an MLS manager, but he was in CF Montreal / the Montreal Impact system for like 15 years, right? I mean, Steve Cherundolo is actually kind of a foreigner in the sense that he played his entire career for Hanover. I mean, he's an American, but he never played in MLS, and he was the mayor of Hanover. Like, he was in Germany for so long, but still, he's a U.S. national team guy. He gets it, right? Like, he understands the sport in this country. Ronnie Dyla in New York City is a bit of an outlier there. But then you've got Caleb Porter. You've got Brian Schmetzer. Tata did it in Atlanta. He's the other one, and certainly what he did in Miami this past season in the regular season, right? But you've got Schmetzers, you've got Vannies, you've got Caleb Porters, who's won 2. Bruce Arena before that won 3 of 4 with LA. Peter Vermees won for Sporting Kansas City. I mean, I'm going back to 2011, right? And so I am a believer in that managers with Major League Soccer experience, managers who understand the structure of the game in the United States and in Canada can be the way to go. This year showed it, right? I mean, though, look, we've got Sandro Schwartz, who's coming in blind, and he's got the Red Bulls here. So if the Red Bulls win, my argument here is completely blown out of the water. But I do think, again, like, you look holistically at this season and what Chris Armas did to revitalize Colorado is another good example of it. Sticking with Greg Vanney, Seattle sticking with Brian Schmetzer, whose supporters wanted him out at the beginning of the season. There are a lot of examples of guys who know the game, who are around the game. Ben Olsen in Houston's another one, of where that path, I think, is more effective than the kind of big swings with a foreign manager. Sometimes works, sometimes doesn't.
I wanted to kind of touch on next season, which seems crazy because we're about to go into MLS Cup, but we often see so much turnover in MLS, and we always see teams that really struggled at the bottom of MLS all of a sudden come back swinging the following year, and it doesn't really happen a lot around the world in other leagues. Who is going to be a huge improvement for you next year, do you think?
Man, yeah, that's an interesting question. I'll start with kind of where I am locally in Portland. I think that there's going to be expectations for them to take another step under Phil Neville. They were fantastic in the attack this year. They weren't good enough defensively. If they can shore things up a little bit on the defensive side if they can figure things out with Evander. Or, if it doesn't work out with Evander, swap him for a like for like. And the attack keeps rolling and you shore up the defense, then I think expectations in Portland, as they always are, to be back into that top 4 of the West and to be competing there. In the Eastern Conference, it's tough because I feel like when you look at the teams that missed the playoffs in the East, which one's going to take a big step next year? I don't know. Philadelphia are a big unknown with them, sacking Jim Curtin, which was a surprising move. And you think if they run it back with Jim, he can probably turn it around and get him back to contention, but they've decided to kind of rebuild. Toronto is now a complete unknown once again with them parting ways with John Herdman. I think Chicago and San Jose will be heavily improved with bringing in Greg Berhalter in Chicago to run the show in every way, and San Jose bringing in Bruce Arena to run the show in every way. And they do it this quick, right? And get them to being like mid playoff teams, right? That 4 to 6 spot. I don't know. That might be too much in one season, but I do think that both of those, the floors of both of those clubs is going to significantly go up with those guys in charge. Those would probably be the two. If you're looking at teams where it's like, who's gonna really improve, I would look at San Jose and Chicago and what two proven guys in this league can do to bring them, just to bring the floor up, right? And to get them back into being contenders and not being kind of bottom dwellers as they've been.
Well, MLS UK show history for LA Galaxy, as I explained, we've struggled to believe that they were ever any good at soccer. And same with Chicago.
Yeah.
So that would be big. We
Man,
keep thinking with Shaqiri, and there's always been some hope, and then it's not quite happening.
Look, they have an ambitious owner. He's going to spend money, and he did. You can't fault him there, right? He spent the money. Shaqiri didn't work out, but at the time, thought of it as a good move, and it was at least an ambitious move, right? And you can't really fault that in that sense. And so I think that's where there's optimism. If you have an owner that's willing to spend, that's willing to show ambition, and now hopefully a decision maker in Greg Berhalter that can better focus kind of that ambition and then to the recipe for success. Man, I grew up in Chicago, in Evanston, Illinois. I was a diehard Chicago Fire fan. Chicago Fire team, they were the team of the first 15 years of MLS, as successful as the Galaxy and DC. To me, those three, the names that came through Chicago, Chris Armas, Jesse Marsh, DeMarcus Beasley, Carlos Bocanegra, Ante Razov, Josh Wolf. I mean, Jim Curtin Zach Thornton was the goalkeeper. You have legends like Christos Stoichkov, Cuauhtemoc Blanco, Peter Novak. I mean, they were legit. This fan base was great. For the first 15 years of MLS, they were a model franchise. And it's been really tough for the past 15 years or so. And so little me, my boyhood self, really want to see the Chicago Fire back. And I think they're on that path.
Well, I hope one day, and probably quite a few years away yet, that you get to call a Portland v Chicago MLS Cup.
Hey, I would love it. Love it. And there's a wonderful symmetry between the two fan bases as well. The Timbers Army, rightfully so, gets a lot of praise and a lot of credit and a lot of focus for what they do and how strong they are. Back when they started, when the Timbers were in 2001 joining I don't know if it was called the A-League or the USL at the time, the names went back and forth, but the second division of American soccer, there was somebody from Chicago, I believe this is the story, who was like was sent to Portland to work for a year or something, right? And for the Portland office. And he had been a member of Section 8, which was Chicago Fire's supporting group. And they, again, the beginning of MLS, them and the Barra Brava in DC were really like a level ahead, and they were way ahead of their time. And this guy from Section 8 kind of mentored and taught the Timbers Army in a way, like what to do. And now the Timbers Army have blossomed and grown and are 6,000 and 7,000 strong at every game. And so anyway, that history of the supporter cultures of the two, meshing together would create a really nice narrative, and maybe an MLS Cup final down the road for those teams.
Well, let's get out of your dreams then and back into reality. We've got LA Galaxy versus Red Bulls for MLS Cup 2024. It's the best attack in the playoffs versus the best defense in the playoffs. How do you see it panning out?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that's the question, right? I think if the Red Bulls can they're going to do it in a different way. But if they can do what Seattle did in the Western Conference Final and keep it scoreless for a long time, I think you'll see the Galaxy get frustrated, as I think you did at times, on Saturday night in the Western Conference Final. Like, Ricky was hand gesturing as wont to do, and others were as well. And there was that lull in the second half where it felt like the Galaxy are maybe out of ideas, or at least just frustrated, because it'd been 15 goals in 3 games, and now they haven't really even created that many threatening chances. And when Seattle were on the ball, and it's like, all right, maybe the Sounders can do this, they didn't have that final moment. And the Sounders, that's something for them to worry about in the offseason, is how to find that. But I think the Rebels will try to do, again, similar to what the Sounders did. And if they can do that, then I think they will have a very good chance of winning MLS Cup off a set piece, right? Like we saw against Orlando. Honestly, similar to kind of how they did against Orlando. Now, the Galaxy, I think, are a better attacking team, certainly, than Orlando City are. But if they can have their kind of Red Bull style of game, where they break things up, they make it disjointed, they make it difficult for the Galaxy in the attack, and then they can find their goal, yeah, we might be talking about the Rebels winning their first ever MLS Cup. On the flip side, if the Galaxy can get an early goal and maybe put some pressure on the Red Bulls and make them be a little more aggressive to try to find an equalizer, it plays into the Galaxy's hands, and maybe you have another crooked number, so to speak, for LA. I think it'll be up to how effective the Red Bulls defense can be in frustrating the Galaxy attack, and how effective the Galaxy can be without Ricky Pooch in dealing with the Red Bulls pressure.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining us once again before MLS Cup. Now, obviously, you can hear Jake calling the big game at the weekend. It kicks off at 9 p.m. here in the UK, which I believe is 4 p.m. Eastern time.
That's correct.
1 p.m. Pacific time, as Jake said earlier. The match is free to watch on Apple TV.
It's hard enough for us here in the United States to do that time zone math between like the Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. To go from UK time all the way to Pacific time, that's well done.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend that Apple TV did send me those notes over, but it was all in here. It was all in my head. But Jake, thanks so much for joining us again. Enjoy the game. We can't wait to hear you. And hopefully, for your show reel, if anything, you get a last-minute winner where you can really shout Emil Forsberg's name or Peck's name or whoever.
There you go. Hey, I always say we don't root for one team or another, but we root for good stories, we root for exciting games, and we root for big moments. So, amen.
Elliot Holman, Henry Hewitt, MLS UK show.
So there we go. That was Jake Zivin, Apple TV's MLS Season Pass's lead play-by-play announcer, who will be with, I presume, Taylor Twellman, calling the big game at the weekend. So, Elliot, that big game is upon us. Sadly, it won't have Orlando City in it, and sadly for Seattle fans, it won't have Seattle in it. It is LA Galaxy versus New York Red Bulls. So, go on. Who's winning it?
It's Galaxy. That's where the smart money goes. And you know what? Controversially, I think just because Red Bulls have been really solid defensively, I think it all unravels here. I think Galaxy have just got too much. It's nothing against Red Bulls, but I think Galaxy have got too much, and I think it could be 2 or 3 comfortably.
Yeah, I think if Galaxy score early on, I think it will be like Jake said, the longer it stays 0-0, or even if Red Bulls can get an early goal, that'll become really interesting then, because it'll be down to the Galaxy to break them down. And I think I said it on one of our playoff episodes. It's all about those moments and who can take advantage of them. We saw that in the conference finals, the fact that they were both 1-0. And I think it's going to be the same in this one. And I think the first 20 minutes, the first half an hour is going to be really important and really vital. I agree with you. I think Galaxy are going to win just based on their attack. Red Bulls have done so well so far, so well to get to this point, let alone how they've got here and the results and stuff. But yeah, I just think Galaxy attack minus Ricky Pooch, which is a bit of an equaliser, but still that attack will be too strong. And we won't be able to say LA Galaxy style anymore.
I feel nervous for this next bit.
So that's it from us for this MLS Cup preview. Thanks very much to Jake for coming on the episode. His second time, so he joins the likes of Andrew Wiebe, Taylor Twellman, who have been on twice. I think a few others as well. We'll have to do like a tally chart of who's been on the most. But yeah, remember the game is live on Apple TV. It's free to watch on Apple TV as well. They want me to say that pre-game does start an hour and a half before kickoff. You can make a whole evening of this here in the UK. Starts at 7:30, match kicks off at 9. American times, you can work that out yourselves wherever you are in the US or Canada. Right, well, if you've enjoyed this episode, then if you're listening on your podcast provider, please leave us a rating, leave us a review. But Elliot, if you are going to leave us a rating, and potentially for the last time,
LA Galaxy style, 5 stars only. Thank you.
Oh, you've got me nervous now. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, click the notification bell, and like this video and comment as well. We've been getting a lot of comments on our Andrew Wiebe episode, a lot of comments on last week's episode as well. So thank you so much. Someone even asking as well, well, why are you watching MLS? How did that come about? And then we had an MLS OG respond saying, well, a Norwich and Bolton fan, and they're sick of losing. It used to be in the intro. So close season, we might do a special episode to reintroduce ourselves for anyone who's listening and watching for the first time this season. But until then, and until MLS Cup, we will be back with a review of MLS Cup and the MLS season. But until then, I've been Henry Hewitt.
5 star. Oh no, sorry. And I've been Elliot Holman.
See ya.